Jack Turner had always believed that Thanksgiving was the one day of the year the world could stop spinning. His hands, usually rough and stained with oil, would finally get to rest on a fork instead of a wrench. His garage closed early, his phone stayed on silent, and the little white house he shared with his mother smelled like cinnamon and roasted turkey. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs, warm, familiar, and full of small-town peace. That night, he sat at the head of the table, watching the steam rise from mashed potatoes piled high like clouds. His mother was humming softly, her silver hair pinned up, a faded apron tied around her waist. The radio played old country songs about love and gratitude, and the flicker of candles made the chipped plates look almost elegant. "Eat up, Jackie," she said with a smile, spooning gravy onto his plate. "You worked yourself half to death this week. That truck of yours can wait till tomorrow." Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "That truck's older than I am, Ma. If I wait till tomorrow, she might not start at all." She laughed, the kind of laugh that filled the room. It had been a long year, with too many repairs, too few paychecks, and an endless stream of strangers coming in with emergencies that always seemed more important than his own rest. But tonight, he'd promised himself he wouldn't touch another wrench. As he cut into the turkey, his phone buzzed once on the counter. He ignored it. A second buzz came, then a third. He sighed, pushed his chair back, and glanced at the screen. It was a number he didn't recognize, local, but unfamiliar. "Don't," his mother said, seeing the hesitation on his face. "It's Thanksgiving. Whoever it is can wait till tomorrow." Jack wanted to agree. He really did. But a part of him, the same stubborn part that made him crawl under trucks in freezing weather and fix engines at midnight, couldn't let it go. Something about the repeated calls felt urgent. He answered. "Turner's Auto." Jack speaking. A shaky woman's voice came through, barely audible over the sound of rain and wind. "Oh, thank God," someone answered. "My family and I are stuck off Highway 19. Our car won't start, and there's no signal out here except this one bar I just got. We've been trying to flag someone down for an hour." Jack frowned, glancing out the window. The storm had rolled in faster than expected, thick sheets of rain lashing against the glass. Highway 19 was a lonely stretch of road that cut through 20 miles of farmland, no houses, no lights, and almost no cell service. "Is everyone okay?" he asked. "Yes, but the kids are freezing. The heater's dead, the battery's dead, everything's dead. Please, can you?" The call broke off into static before he could get a location. Jack swore softly under his breath. He tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. His mother watched him quietly, her hand still on her apron. "You're not going out there, are you?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. He shrugged on his jacket and grabbed his toolbox from the corner. "There's a family stranded in this weather, Ma. Kids and all. I can't just sit here. It's dark. It's dangerous. I'll be fine," he said, giving her a reassuring smile. "I'll be back before the pie gets cold." Outside, the wind howled like something alive. His old pickup sputtered before the engine finally turned over, headlights cutting through the sheets of rain. The wipers squealed against the glass as he pulled onto the slick road, tires splashing through puddles. The turkey dinner, the laughter, the warmth, all of it faded behind him as the storm swallowed the night. He drove slowly, squinting through the downpour, scanning the road for any sign of a car. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the empty highway. Then, after 10 long minutes, he saw it, a small sedan parked on the shoulder, hazard lights barely blinking. Jack's heart eased a little. He'd found them. He pulled over and grabbed his flashlight, the rain instantly soaking through his jacket. As he approached the car, he could see silhouettes inside, a man in the driver's seat, a woman turned toward the back, and 2 little heads bundled under blankets. He tapped gently on the window, and the father's face turned toward him, startled, then relieved. Jack smiled through the rain. "Looks like you folks could use a little help." And in that moment, as the freezing wind whipped around him and thunder rumbled overhead, Jack Turner didn't think about the warm meal waiting back home. He didn't think about the pie, the football game, or the comfort he'd left behind. He only thought about the stranded family, and the quiet, steady conviction that helping them was exactly where he was meant to be. Rain was coming down in thick, Slanting sheets, the kind that turned every breath into mist and every sound into a dull roar. Jack Turner wiped water from his eyes and knelt beside the stranded sedan, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The family inside looked like a snapshot of exhaustion. The father's face pale and tight, the mother holding a shivering little boy to her chest, and a girl no older than 6 staring at him through the fogged window with wide, uncertain eyes. He gave a quick wave to show he wasn't a threat, then called out through the storm. "Pop the hood for me." The man nodded and did as he was told. Jack propped the hood open, the rain hissing against hot metal. He worked fast, his hands steady despite the cold biting into his knuckles. The battery terminals were corroded, green with age. He recognized the issue instantly. The car hadn't died because of the weather, it had died because it had been neglected for far too long. "Batteries shot," he muttered to himself. "Let's see what we can do." He ran back to his truck, grabbed a jumper pack, and connected it with practiced precision. Sparks danced briefly as he made the connection. The car's lights flickered, then steadied. The little girl inside clapped her hands, and Jack couldn't help but grin. The father rolled down the window, voice trembling. "You're a lifesaver, man. We've been out here for almost 2 hours." Jack shrugged, brushing rain from his beard. "You just got unlucky with the weather. Happens more often than you'd think. Let's check that tire next. Looks like it's low." When he crouched down with the flashlight, his boots sank slightly into the muddy shoulder. The front right tire was nearly flat, a nail embedded deep in the tread. He let out a low whistle. "Well, that explains part of it." He stood, stretching his stiff back. "Got a spare?" The man opened the trunk and nodded toward the small, underinflated donut tire. Jack rolled it out, loosened the lug nuts, and got to work without hesitation. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory born from years under cars, trucks, and engines that had long since given up on life. Behind him, the woman leaned out of the window, her voice barely audible over the rain. "We tried calling a tow truck, but nobody would come. Said the roads were too slick." Jack tightened the last nut and looked up at her. "Well, lucky for you, I don't scare that easy." She smiled faintly, relief softening her features. "We didn't even catch your name." "Jack Turner," he said, standing and wiping his hands on his jeans. "Mechanic over at Turner's Auto. I live just a few miles from here." The father stepped out of the car and extended a hand, rain dripping from his jacket sleeve. "I'm Daniel," he said. "That's my wife, Erin, and our kids, Chloe and Ben. We were driving upstate to see family. Guess we didn't plan for this weather." Jack shook his hand firmly. "Happens to the best of us, Daniel." He crouched again, checked the spare's pressure, and gave the tire an approving nod. "There, should be good enough to get you to town. I'll follow you in, just in case." Daniel started to reach into his wallet. "Please, let me pay you. You came all this way." Jack raised a hand, cutting him off. "Forget it. You've got 2 kids half asleep in the backseat and a long drive ahead. Just get them warm and safe." The man hesitated. "At least let me." "Daniel," Jack said, his voice gentle but firm. "Happy Thanksgiving. That's payment enough." For a long moment, the 2 men just stood there in the rain, headlights flickering off the wet pavement. Then Daniel nodded slowly, eyes full of something that wasn't just gratitude, it was disbelief, the kind that came from being helped when you least expected it. Jack watched as the family settled back into the car. The mother turned and mouthed, "Thank you," through the glass. The little girl waved, her hand pressed against the fogged window. When the engine roared to life, the cheer that came from inside the car warmed something deep inside Jack. He stepped back, giving them room to pull away. The red taillights cut through the darkness like 2 glowing beacons as they drove off down the slick highway. Jack waited until they disappeared over the hill before turning back to his truck. His clothes clung to him, his boots squelched in the mud, and his hands were shaking from the cold. But he felt lighter, the kind of lightness that didn't come from rest or comfort, but from knowing you'd done the right thing, even when no one would have blamed you for staying home. He climbed into the driver's seat and looked at the time, nearly midnight. His mother would be worried sick. The turkey would be cold, the pie untouched. But as he drove back through the rain, the image of that little girl's smile stayed with him. For Jack Turner, that was all the Thanksgiving he needed. The morning after Thanksgiving, Sunlight spilled through the blinds in narrow golden stripes, slicing across the worn linoleum floor of Jack Turner's kitchen. The smell of leftover turkey and cold coffee lingered in the air. Jack sat at the table, boots still muddy from the night before, replaying the storm in his mind. The stranded family, the little girl's smile pressed against the fogged window, the way the father's voice had cracked when he said, "Thank you." He rubbed his eyes, still exhausted but strangely content. His mother stood at the stove, humming softly, flipping pancakes with the same rhythm she'd had since he was a kid. "You came back at 1 in the morning," she said without turning. "I figured you'd either frozen to death or found a bigger problem to fix." Jack chuckled and took a sip of cold coffee. Family got stuck on Highway 19. Battery was gone, tire flat, kids in the back. Couldn't leave them out there. His mother finally looked over her shoulder, a fond, tired smile tugging at her mouth. "You've got a good heart, Jackie. Always did. But one day, that heart's gonna get you in trouble." "Maybe," he said, smiling faintly. "But last night, it got a family home safe. I'll take that kind of trouble." Before she could respond, a low rumble filled the quiet morning, the sound of tires crunching on gravel outside. Jack frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He set his mug down and peered through the window. A black SUV had pulled into their driveway, sleek and spotless, the kind of vehicle that looked like it belonged in a city parking garage, not next to his rusted pickup. Two men in suits stepped out, one holding a camera. Another figure followed. Tall, sharply dressed, with familiar eyes and a smile that made Jack blink twice. "Ma," he said slowly, "I think someone important just got lost." When he opened the door, the man in the suit grinned. "Mr. Turner," he said warmly, extending a hand. "Good to see you again." Jack stared for a moment before recognition dawned. It was Daniel, the father from the stranded car, though now he looked completely different. No soaked jacket, no exhaustion, no panic. His hair was neatly combed, and his suit looked expensive enough to pay off Jack's mortgage. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" Jack asked, shaking his hand hesitantly. Daniel chuckled. "First off, I owe you a proper thank you. Second," he gestured to the man beside him, who was now setting up a small camera on a tripod. "I hope you don't mind a little company. Turns out you gave a ride to the CEO of Rhodes Automotive last night." Jack blinked. "Wait, the Rhodes Automotive, the car company?" "That's right," Daniel said, smiling. "We design and manufacture vehicles, or at least, we try to. Last night, I was reminded what cars are really about, not just machines, but lifelines. And you, my friend, reminded me what it means to care about the people behind the wheel." Jack rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to say. "I just fixed your car, that's all." "No," Daniel said, stepping closer. "You gave up your Thanksgiving dinner to help complete strangers, in a storm, without asking for anything in return. That's not just fixing a car. That's the kind of integrity this world needs more of." The cameraman gestured to them. "Mr. Rhodes, we're rolling." Jack froze. "Wait, what is this?" Daniel smiled reassuringly. "A small piece for our company's holiday campaign. I didn't tell them your name last night, but I couldn't stop thinking about what you did. People should hear about it." Before Jack could protest, Daniel turned to the camera. "Last night, my family and I were stranded on a dark highway in the middle of a storm. We were cold, frightened, and out of options, until a man named Jack Turner showed up. He didn't ask who we were, didn't ask for money, he just helped. Because that's who he is. That's what real service looks like." Jack stood there awkwardly, his ears burning. His mother peeked out from the doorway, hand over her mouth in disbelief. When the camera cut, Daniel turned back to Jack and handed him an envelope. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's an offer. I want you to come work with us. We're starting a new program, community repair teams, helping stranded drivers for free. People like you are exactly who we need to lead it." Jack opened the envelope and saw a contract, neat and official. His eyes widened when he saw the figure, enough to fix up his garage, pay off his debts, and maybe even breathe for the first time in years. I don't know what to say," he murmured. "Say yes," Daniel said simply. "You earned it." Jack looked back at his mother, who was standing in the doorway with tears in her eyes. She nodded once. You've spent your life helping everyone else, Jackie, she whispered. Maybe it's time you let someone help you. He turned back to Daniel and extended his hand. All right, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. You've got yourself a mechanic. As the camera crew packed up and the SUV pulled away, Jack stood in the driveway, the cool morning air filling his lungs. He looked down at the contract again, then up at the sky, clear now, the storm long gone. He'd gone out the night before thinking he was just fixing a car. But somehow, he'd ended up fixing his own future.